My name is Jess Navarro. I'm a doctoral student at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro in the Human Development and Family Studies Department. My research group studies gratitude. We're called the Development of Gratitude, Materialism, and Sustainability Lab. And over the past 5 years, our research group, led by my advisor, Dr. Jonathan Tudge, has studied the development of gratitude cross-culturally in different countries around the world. That grant came to an end about 2 years ago. And since then, we've been working on next steps. How do we take the information we learned from that research and translate it into real world results? How can we get that information into schools and families and communities? How can we help parents and children? How can we help communities grow? So it's sort of one of the things that we constantly talk about in our research group. And we look at gratitude slightly differently than how other people might look at it. A lot of people think about gratitude as being a feeling, right? You get something and you feel really good, or somebody might be described as a grateful person. But the way that we look at gratitude is more than that. It's more than saying thank you. It's about reciprocating to somebody who does something good for you. So the definition we use is that there's a benefactor. The benefactor does something altruistically for the beneficiary, and the beneficiary recognizes that. That person did that out of their own goodwill and wants to return the favor, if possible, with something of benefit to the benefactor. So the beneficiary really has to think, what would that benefactor want? And that creates this cycle of, gosh, I'm thinking about what somebody else did for me, what can I do for them? And that cycle increases the connections in communities and within families, and we really think could be just a great thing to encourage in children. So how can we go about that? We talked about a lot of things. As I mentioned, we have been looking at it in schools and in different community settings and youth development. And one day I sort of thought, well, how can we get this into homes? How can we get parents talking about this? I have 3 kids of my own, and one of my favorite ways to reach my kids with difficult ideas or sort of with moral lessons is through children's literature. We love to read together. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could create a children's book about this? How hard can creating a children's book be? It turns out really difficult. So that's sort of where ICORPS stepped in. I reached out to ICORPS to see if they could help support us in sort of finding more about this whole world that we don't know much about. Obviously, children's literature is a whole industry in itself, so I really wanted to learn, what does it take to write a children's book? How do you begin to do that? How do you get it published? What are all those different steps? So through the discovery process with ICORPS, we learned a lot. I talked to parents, librarians, bookstore owners, authors, illustrators, editors, publishers, agents. I talked to a lot of people to sort of find out how to make a children's book. And this all sort of culminated at this conference in LA, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. They have 2 conferences, one in LA and one in New York every year. And so ICORPS supported me to go out to LA to this amazing conference. It was really one of the best conferences I've ever been to. Super, super inspiring. Also a little intimidating, but I learned so much about the process going forward. One of the big things I learned at the conference was just how much hard work it takes to write a children's book. How many different levels of research, writing, revision, and critique all children's books go through. Even though they're between 300 and 500 words, it takes sometimes years for people to write children's books because every single word, every single syllable matters. And so I really learned that, hey, this is not a simple process. This is something that takes talent, it takes perseverance, it takes incredible hard work, and it really takes a dedication to that craft. So moving forward, I really want to continue working on the project, starting to write. We have 2 different storylines in development, and the advice I got at the conference was start writing. Every day, sit down an hour a day and write and rewrite and write and rewrite and research and rewrite. And that's sort of the same advice we use in academic writing, so I'm super excited about that. So hopefully this fall I'll be working on drafts of manuscripts, and then hopefully later in the winter submit them to various agents and publishers that I met at the SCBWI conference in LA.